Hey guys, welcome. A lot of game developers want to know how to stay motivated. It's one of the most popular searches in YouTube if you type in game dev. And I have a very unique take on this. I really think that this is going to help you. But this is not a how to stay motivated video. I want to prove to you why motivation is not what you need to finish your game. What you actually need is probably not what you think. Okay, so if you've been here before, then you've heard me say again and again, video game development is an art. I feel very strongly about this. And as in any other art form, you're going to hear a lot of talk about motivation, how to stay motivated, how to get those creative juices flowing, how to overcome writer's block, how to overcome art block. I Googled it, apparently that's a thing. But this becomes a very big problem when we're trying to turn our art into a viable business. You're not just making games for the fun and for the joy of it. You are doing it for those things, but you're also doing it in hopes of making some money. This is not just an art, it's also a business. And if you want the freedom to be able to create games for the rest of your life, then you're going to have to bring in enough money to be able to sustain that. And when you're relying on something as fickle as motivation, things can get very stressful. And this is because motivation is not completely within your control. Yes, there are definitely things that you can do to help you to stay motivated. But despite that, there are going to be days where you know you should be working on your game and you just don't feel like it. And honestly, it feels like the worst possible thing that you could do, and you'd rather do anything else. There doesn't even have to be a trigger or an event that makes you feel that way. You can just wake up and feel unmotivated that day. We are human beings. Our lives, our moods, our energy levels, our motivation to pursue our goals, it all changes day to day, and this is normal. And I gotta tell you, it would be so easy to come in at this point and start talking to you about discipline. I've talked about that before, and you do need discipline to be successful in this industry. But when you think about the word discipline, what does that mean to you? To me, it means powering through and doing the things that I don't feel like doing, or just plain not doing the things that I actually really want to do, but aren't necessarily good for me. At least that is what discipline used to mean to me. If you know a smoker who wants to quit really badly, but they've tried and they just can't seem to do it, especially if you are a non-smoker, it's really easy to sit there and say, why don't you just not pick up a cigarette, right? If you don't want to pick up a cigarette and smoke it, then don't pick up a cigarette and smoke it. This obviously is not the full picture though, because that smoker has tried and failed to quit multiple times now. So you're probably like, Brandon, what does this have to do with motivation in game development? We're getting there. The reality is that discipline, in the context of if you want to do something, then just do it, that's going to make you feel like crap. And it doesn't just work like that. And this is because of neural pathways in your brain. Whenever you take an action, you are either creating a new neural pathway, if it's a new activity that you've never done, or you're following a pre-existing neural pathway. And when you do something enough times, like driving to work, that neural pathway becomes so entrenched in your brain that you no longer need to consciously think about it in order to do it. You can just drive to work and not remember the drive afterwards. That's because you've done it so many times now that your subconscious mind is able to handle that task, freeing up your conscious mind to think about more important things. Now, back to our smoker. Let's say whenever they take a break at work, they have a smoke, and on the drive home, and after they finish dinner, and the next morning after they wake up and make coffee. There are triggers or events sprinkled throughout that smoker's day where there are deep neural pathways, which makes them desperately want to smoke. You have a very easy time not smoking when you are a non-smoker, but that smoker has triggers throughout their day. In fact, their brains are getting flooded with dopamine, the feel-good hormone, before they have a smoke, which means their brains are literally anticipating the act of smoking before they've even done it, rewarding them just for the thought of wanting one. So what does this mean? It means that simply buckling down and being disciplined, i.e. just don't have a smoke, it's very unlikely to work. They have triggers all over their normal daily life that is going to make them desperately want to smoke. This doesn't mean they can't quit cold turkey, it just makes it very, very unlikely. They might even have a lot of motivation to quit. Maybe they had a health scare, or maybe they've been told that they're going to die if they can't find a way to quit, and yet some people can't quit. Motivation is not the problem. Now, this is an extreme example, and it's kind of enhanced because smoking involves addictive substances. But when you look at things from that angle, it's really easy to see that motivation is not the answer. They don't want to die. They don't want to get sick. They've told you they desperately want to quit. They have plenty of motivation to quit. So why can't they? Why do they have so much trouble? Well, a big part of the reason is because of their habits. and because of the neural pathways that their brain wants them to follow. Your brain is a highly evolved tool that is always looking for ways to automate certain tasks. And when you've done something enough times, as we said, it becomes a habit, meaning your subconscious mind is handling you doing that task more than your conscious mind is. And this is really, really hard to fight against. So motivation is not what's needed here. What's needed are good habits that are going to help you in accomplishing your goal of finishing your game. What if you were able to make a habit of working on your game every single weekday, an hour before work? You don't fight it. You don't even really think about it. You just wake up, make a coffee, and go work on your game for an hour. So maybe we've been asking ourselves the wrong questions. Maybe it's not how do I stay motivated to finish my game? Maybe it's how can I establish good game development habits? And by the way, if you're enjoying the video, then please give it a like. It really helps to grow the channel and we really appreciate it. When you step back and realize, okay, starting a new project is always fun. There's nothing but opportunity. Things have not gotten out of control or bloated or messy yet. And so you enjoy starting new projects. Then it's easy to see why it's so difficult to push through and keep working on the game you actually want to be creating. Creating new mechanic after new mechanic is way more fun than having to do things like optimization and other tasks that you would need to worry about for a commercial game. Finding motivation for new projects is easy. So if you've been struggling to work on your game consistently, it's not because you're lazy, and it's not because you need to find a way to motivate yourself to keep working on it. It's just likely that you don't have any habits in place to help you to continue working on your game even when you don't want to. What I've come to learn slowly but surely over the years is that a disciplined person is not this superhuman person with like massive willpower that just powers through and does the things that need to get done and can just resist all temptations and distractions. A disciplined person is someone who has taken a little bit of time and done a little bit of work to optimize their environment or their day or their life in order to achieve the things that they want to achieve. They optimize things so that making good choices is easy to do. For example, if you want to eat less junk food and you want to eat more healthy, hide the jar of candies that you keep on your kitchen island and replace it with a bowl of fruit instead. If you want to watch less TV in bed, then keep your remote in the living room instead of on your nightstand. If you want to work on your game every single day, what can you do to make that easy for yourself? What can you do to reward yourself for doing the work? How can you make it easy and how can you make it fun? The huge difference between this and motivation is that optimizing your environment is completely within your control. Your motivation level isn't. Sometimes you're just not going to want to work on your game. That's okay. But if you have a goal of working on your game every single day, what can you do to make it easy? Maybe you have a little candy jar on your desk, and if you sit down to work on your game just for 5 minutes a day, then you allow yourself to take a candy or two out of the jar and no other time ever. And if you've been on your computer for 5 minutes doing some work, it's very likely that you're going to want to continue working longer than that. But make that 5 minutes each day a habit and then reward yourself for it. That might sound a little bit stupid, but if you do that, what are you doing? You are training your brain to expect a reward for doing the things that you don't feel like doing. If you do that consistently, your brain is going to start to expect it. And now you've got a neural pathway set up that associates working with candy, which might just make it a little bit less difficult for you in the long run. And this is obviously just one example. There are so many things that you can do. If your goal is to work on your game every single day, then your goal should be to establish a habit of working on your game every single day, not to find the motivation which will then allow you to work on your game every single day. And this can extend into all sorts of tiny little habits that will make you more efficient at what you do. For example, I used to work upstairs in the dining room. There was a lot more light up there than in my basement office, and it was right next to the kitchen, so the coffee was right there. And yet I had a really tough time getting into the zone and just getting things done up there. Because we were upstairs, there were constant interruptions and distractions. It's right beside the living room, which is where we watch TV in the evenings. It was just a really distracting environment. I now work in my office downstairs, and I use this space only for work, like 99% of the time. So why is that important? Those neural pathways we've been talking about, they have certain triggers, and your environment is a part of those triggers. So if you have an office that you only do work in, your mind is going to start associating that room with getting work done. If you're working in bed or in the kitchen or whatever, you're going to have all sorts of other triggers firing all throughout the day, and it's just going to distract you from your goals. That smoker, our example from earlier, they want a smoke after they're done working because they associate driving with smoking. Their brain has made that connection. The room you're in matters. The time of day matters. Who's in the room with you matters. By the way, everything that we have discussed, it's all available in much more detail in the book Atomic Habits. I will leave a link down below in the description, and if you're wanting to support this channel, that is a really great way to do it. But I hope I've helped you see that motivation is not the problem. Willpower Willpower is not the problem. You might just need to establish some habits that are in alignment with your vision and with your goals. Making games is hard. You've got enough things to worry about already. You don't need to be fighting with your subconscious mind every step of the way too, because that's just going to be exhausting. If you have any tips for developing good game dev habits, then please leave them down below. I would love to hear them.